Good morning, Divine Feminines. Welcome to the next episode of Feminine Talks. So, today we're going to be talking about a fun topic and a cool topic, I think, and something that is interesting to know. And the reason I want to talk about this topic is because I myself on this journey was very interested in that topic. The topic is past lives, right? So, past lives that we share, past lives that we live with our twin, and a bit of a bigger picture. So, I was always interested in that. And um, there were a couple of confusions, um, unanswered questions that I had on my journey. Um, and I could kind of go into the loop, right? So if we have past lifetimes, does it mean we never get into union? Does it mean it's possible we're not going to get into union in this lifetime? Why don't we get into union before? Do you know what I mean? So I would get a little bit confused. But the reason I said it's a more of a fun topic. So I'm going to be talking about past lifetimes we have with your twin, why they're important, why do we choose have past lifetimes, how many times we get into union, how it actually looks like from a bigger perspective. So it's fun to know. It can be helpful for you to know. Depending on your individual path with your twin, it can be relevant. It's very relevant for the divine feminine to tap into past lifetimes because we heal on the level of a soul. So we not only heal the traumas and the pains from this lifetime, but we actually heal our past lifetimes, and past experiences with our twin are very traumatic and very painful because of the intensity of that connection, and we get to that later. But the reason I say it's more of a loose topic is because all of the other talks that I've done, so the previous, I believe, 9 episodes at this point, are topics that are very important to understand. It's like you have to understand them to progress on a journey, right? You have to understand what are the levels of the journey. You have to understand what happens to the masculine during separation. You have to understand that you're always equals. You have to understand the feminine and the masculine energy. When it comes to your joint lifetimes, it's something that is helpful, but you can progress on this journey without really having answers to these topics. So it's a bit of a more of a let's chat. Maybe some of you will find that interesting. And another thing that I want to mention, because perhaps some of you, as I'm going to get into the depths of these topics, you're going to be asking yourself, well, how do I know this, right? So it's the answer is on some level is going to be same for every topic like that. There are no books about these topics. There are no tangible proofs of these topics because this is the magic of the journey. This journey is what taps you into your divine feminine power, and that power is being an oracle and being able to connect to the divine, right? So this is how I get that information. I connect to spirit, I connect to the void as a psychic medium, as someone who was chosen to use divination, tarot, dowsing rods, other tools that I use as well. I get these responses in meditation, in contemplation, in form of inner knowing. Some of these things are also things that I've lived on my journey, right? I am someone who was very dedicated to past life healing, right? So at one point of my journey, when I felt like I have addressed the traumas and the woundings of this lifetime, I embarked on a journey of soul recall and past life regression and shamanic journey of remembrance to remember those past lifetimes, and to be able to heal and integrate pieces of my soul. And in my belief, my universal truth, it's something that every divine feminine will do at one point. It's just that we do it differently, right? Those of us who will be more, your path will be spiritual journey. you will actually embark on that shamanic journey, right? And you will actually tap into that energy very strongly. But those of us, those of you that I've had a different and separate episode about the path of the feminine, how different it can be for all of us. So those of you that will have a bit of a different path, not that much related to being a spiritual teacher. We're all spiritual beings, we're all oracles, we're all high priestesses, but not all of us do it for others. Some of us use it for ourselves, right, on our journey, our inner union and our external union, for us, for you, and for your masculine, whereas your path is related to something different. So your past life journey might not be as required, as deep, as detailed, right, as it is for those of us who choose the path of being a spiritual teacher. But it's relevant to all. So let's give it a go and let's start. So what I want to start from is explaining to you as I understand it, because this is a very complicated topic, right? We're going to be talking about past lifetimes and the fact that linearity of time is something that only exists in the physical realm, right? So in this life, we live through life following the linearity of time, which means that we have past, we have present, and we have future, right? So when I think about this is my life now, I think about past lifetimes and as it was, right? But the universal truth, and it's something that it's not just a spiritual topic, quantum physics and science knows this at this point, is that in quantum field, everything exists always, right? There is no passage of time. Time exists, but it's not linear. It's not, is that missing dimension. We experience it as we experience the linearity of time, but it's actually not linear, right? And it's funny because I've asked this question in one of my dowsing rod sessions on TikTok, and I've asked, is it true that past, present, future exists simultaneously? And the spirit didn't want to answer, and through different questions we reached a conclusion that it's just a little bit too complicated for human brain to actually comprehend, because we have to accept that in the end we come here to live this human experience, right? We come here to live in a human body, and that body has certain limitations, and granted, these limitations give us access to things that we actually want to experience as a soul that are not in the spiritual realm. But it's sort of a something for something kind of situation, right? Our human mind is simply not able to comprehend certain things. So we know that there's no linearity of time. We know that time as it exists universally outside of physical realm is not how we understand time. It's a very funny and very complex topic, so I don't want to go there, because to me it's also a rabbit hole when it comes to travel in time and changing timelines and creating new it's a very complicated topic. So what I want you to understand and I want you to remember, and that's something that I have in my inner knowing and I have experienced, and I've also many times connected to the void in order to understand this concept a little better. But because it's not exactly past, present, future, imagine you take a step back, right? And you return to spiritual realm. You shed your physical body and you no longer in the physical world that somehow it's just an illusion. It's just a matrix, kind of a simulation, right? It's not something that actually exists. You're observing it, and through observing it you bring it into existence, right? This is why we say that in the quantum field, not all of the timelines are materialized, right? So in the quantum field, everything that was, is, will be, can be, could be, everything exists, right? Everything. And us, our soul, through awareness, an act of observation, we bring certain things from the quantum field and materialize them, right? So yes, it's true, any possibility exists in the quantum field, but only few only few timelines are actually materialized through the act of observation and connecting to that timeline. So sorry, it's a background deviation, but it's actually an important one. So as you live your life, right, you go ahead and you live your life, you take serious choices, right? And we're not talking here about whether I'm gonna drink tea or coffee in the morning. We're talking about big choices, right? So whether I'm gonna engage in a new friendship with this person or not, whether I'm gonna sleep with this person or not, whether I'm gonna, go to that travel or not, bigger things. Every time you make that choice, you create a new timeline, right? And that timeline is materialized because it's sort of a closed to the timeline that you are observing. So in order for me to explain this to you the best I can, if you perhaps are a scientist of divine feminine, you are a scientist and you are a physicist, I would love to talk to you and sign up for a session, no charge, and we will be talking for hours. I would love to understand it from both perspectives, because this is also our objective, right? To merge the human experience and the human knowledge and the divine knowledge. They're supposed to be working together to progress. And actually we know in the spiritual world that the greatest minds were actually inspired by spirit and draw in information from quantum field and from the void, just like us feminines. But in addition, they had an amazing, beautiful mind, and they were able to translate it into science and numbers and physical, tangible things that we understand in this world. So whereas everything exists in the quantum field, right? So let's take my example. Everything exists in the quantum field. An option when right now I am living in New York as a ballerina exists in the quantum field, okay? But that timeline is not materialized because the choices as a soul that I make on an everyday basis, my key timeline, sort of a situation, the timeline I'm currently connected to is far away from it, right? So the timeline may exist. So for example, a couple of weeks ago, right, I was supposed to return to my other house in Spain, right? But it was that moment when there was this huge blackdown, power was down in Spain for, I believe, 24 hours or somewhere close 20 hours, and my flight was canceled, and there was no available flight for the next week, right? And then for the following week, they were very expensive. And then literally, as I was on my way to the airport, my mother called me saying that she's gonna have, her surgery not postponed, but moved forward. So it's gonna happen in 3 weeks. So I thought, okay, it makes not sense for me to go for a week and then come back. I'm just gonna stay, right? So divine orchestration of certain things, spirit wanted me to be here right now for my greatest good, because it's also another topic that I'm now in a state of surrendering. So I do as I'm told, right? By spirit directly, right? I do not question, I do not think the why. I receive an information. I'm like that leaf with the wind, right? So I'm not fighting against it. Apparently there was a reason for me to be here, and I do not need to know this reason, and I do not care about this reason. To be honest, I am here But we could say that a timeline exists that my flight was actually a day before, right? Before the shutdown. And I'm right now in Spain, right? So those two timelines can be materialized because they're close together. I'm actually the same person. I'm doing the same things, right? It's same. It's just it's a little bit different, right? But again, a timeline when I'm living in New York and I'm a ballerina, many things since years would need to happen for me to actually be able to materialize that, right? So when we talk about timelines and we talk about your journey, and I always talk to you guys about this, we have our highest, most aligned timeline, right? Which is the timeline, to explain this to you, is as a soul, we come to this world and we have a plan. We prepare sort of a project plan. And just like any project plan, we have milestones, things that have to happen. No matter what, this is something that we can postpone. This is something that it would be good to have, but it doesn't have to happen. But this is a milestone, and this is the deadline for this milestone, right? So those are those parts of our timeline that I call milestones, and they're part of our destiny, right? So for twin flames, for example, is meeting your twin, right? So certain things happened in my life that led me to meet my beautiful masculine, but certain things didn't have to happen, and I would end up in the exact same place, in the exact same bar where we met. Probably there was also an option B, C, and D. If I didn't end up in this bar next day, we would have another window of opportunity to meet, right? But do you know what I mean? So there's certain big things that had to happen, right? So as you progress on your journey, there's always an highest, most aligned timeline. And I explain this to you guys every time I say I am a psychic medium and an alignment reader, which means that when you come on session to me, whether you're on your twin flame journey or not, I guide you towards alignment. I help you to strip certain limiting beliefs, to strip and close certain karmic contracts in order for you to reach that highest, most aligned timeline, right? And on that timeline, this is where we are with either our twin, if you're on a twin journey, or with highest, most aligned soulmate. This is where we are fulfilled. This is where we are at peace. This is where we tap into the abundance through our gifts and through things that we actually were meant to do, that talent, that calling, right? Those gifts. This is where we live long and prosperous, right? This is the timeline. But it's not that easy to get into that timeline, right? So simultaneously different options exist, and we observe as a soul, the awareness of our soul observes these timelines simultaneously, right? But if you actually reach your highest, most aligned timeline, you're sort of it's funny, my shadow worker would always call it, you kill off the other timelines, right? And the in the past life as well. But I just say they dematerialized. They go back to the quantum field confirmation. They go back to the quantum field as a theory, but they're not actually materialized in the physical world. You are left with your best option because you have chosen this option, right? So right, so we've touched on that. So now imagine you are awareness. Take a step back, right? You get out of the physical world, you get out of the matrix, you're back in the spiritual realm, in between lives, right? Your awareness. It's not actually that you're living a lifetime, because in the void, time is not linear, but you're looking at, I believe physics explained this in the same way. Imagine you're looking at pieces of shots of movie, how they're called, like those little boxes when you have a movie, right? That is a digital movie, right? So it's not that they're moving, right? Because time is not linear in the void, but you're moving through them, you're observing them. And as awareness, you can be observing different lifetimes and different timelines, right? And you materialize those that you are observing, and those that you are choosing, and those that you are actually experiencing in the physical world. But as an awareness, you have a whole visual, right? You have a whole visual. Another confirmation. What's with the messages? You have the whole visual. So you can see every lifetime and every timeline. You have a whole visual. You know it all, right? Past, present, future. What we call past, present, future. So when you embark on a journey as a soul on earth, right? There are certain souls that we're very close to earth, we're very attached to earth. There are souls, it's a whole different topic, that certain souls actually are linked to earth, and then other souls, we come here to live many experiences, but we actually are attached to a different realm or a different world, right? This is why we say we have Venusians and Pleiadians and angelic souls, right? Because they're not earthly souls, but we can come here, that star seed, what we call star seed, right? But we can come here and experience this because earth is a very beautiful and challenging place to be. Now it's a whole different complex. I don't want to, again, rabbit hole. I don't want to get into too many deviations. Thank you, Spirit. So you have a whole visual. So as a soul, you say, okay, I want to embark on a journey of earth. Fun, right? I'm going to be living through different lifetimes, and this is what I want to achieve, right? Obviously, you're going to be achieving variety of things, different things in different lifetime, and it's going to be beautiful and it's going to be wonderful. But you have sort of a theme, right? So some souls say, my theme on earth will be twin flame, which means that I will be embarking on this whole journey of lifetimes, from the first to the last one, to experience the journey of twin flame. Now, this doesn't mean that you're going to be living every lifetime with your twin, and we're going to get to that, but it's sort of a dissertation topic, okay? It's your dissertation topic. So you're going to be exploring different topics. You're going to be exploring yourself, because we come to earth to explore our soul, to allow our soul to grow, to heal our soul, right? To remember in the physical world the oneness of the soul, right, with the universe. And some soul choose it through, a journey of extreme pain. Some choose it through journey of spirituality, but becoming like shamans. And do you know what I mean? But it's like a key topic, right? So your soul, if you're here, if you're watching me, if you are in a twin flame journey, your soul chose as your dissertation twin flame and love, which means that you're going to be coming periodically to certain lifetimes with your twin flame, with an objective to start and end this journey in union with your divine counterpart, with the other half of your soul. Now, not everyone does that. Very few souls do that, because there's something specific in that journey. And also, again, all souls have twin souls, but only few souls actually choose that as a dissertation topic, actually choose to come to live the lifetimes on earth with the theme of that twin flame, with that knowing that they are here somewhere. And this is that sensation, that magical sensation within us that we go through in every lifetime, even the lifetimes that we're not sharing with our twin flame. there is something and someone out there for me. Is this true belief that we always have within us, in every lifetime, in every timeline, that love exists. There's someone out there. There's someone out there. There's just like me, right? So knowing that, with this very long deviation that I've done about timelines, but it was important, right? And you will realize in a moment why. Knowing all that information, what I want you to know, there are a couple of things that now I want you to know, and maybe they will help you to understand this journey better. If you have chosen for your human experience, earthly experience, that twin flame journey, right? The first lifetime and the last lifetime will be a lifetime that you live with your twin flame on earth, right? And a very magical thing that I want to share with you, your first and your last physical partner, intimate partner, will be your divine counterpart. Okay? So as this beautiful innocent soul in your first lifetime, that is a kicker. Can you imagine that? It's hard now after freakishly long. It's like I've lived over 700 lifetimes on earth, and this journey was the most difficult thing. Can you imagine, without everything that the soul, the growth and the expansion of the soul and the awareness that we're given in the last lifetime? Can you imagine in the first lifetime? Madness, magic. I actually remember this lifetime, and actually this is one of the first lifetimes that I've tapped into, and one of my first past life regression that also explained to me two very painful things in my life. One was a physical pain that I was feeling, and I believe like 10 years plus before I met my twin, in my body, and that wouldn't want to go away. And the second thing was something that would always cause a fear within me. And that lifetime explained this to me, and it was a very, very, very powerful experience. Side note, as I went through this, we were in separation in the beginning. Were we on separation, or we were in an in and out phase? I think we were still in an in and out phase, but I haven't heard from him for a very long time. And I went through this past life regression, and the pain of the soul, of the body, I was crying for days. And when I was right after the session with my shaman, I was lying in bed. Yes, it was an in and out phase, and it was the first time since I was activated that I wasn't actually thinking about my divine counterpart. The obsession went away for a moment because I was so focused on what I just went through. And he actually reached out to me. And it was something very beautiful, because to me it was like this confirmation, like he knew I needed him, even if it was just like, hey, and then, again, back in a delulu and delusional land, right? Side note, sorry for that personal sharing. But yeah, again, so that first life and that last life that you live is with your twin. She, whoever's watching, your first intimate partner, your first love on earth, and your last love on earth. So one of the questions when these things were being revealed to me, right? One of the questions that was on my mind, and I was, searching for answers, was, well, okay, does it mean that we live all the lifetimes together? And the answer is no. Can you imagine? Crazy, right? No, because this is just a part of your journey. What you can achieve with your twin flame always awakens you, right? We're going to talk about this in a moment, because awakening and activation are two completely different things, right? We'll unravel that in a moment. We'll unbox that. But meeting your twin flame and fusing with your twin flame as a divine feminine, he will always awaken you, right? But you do also, as a soul, even those lifetimes that we share, right? We always have a unique mission. We have a mission together, right? But we always have a mission on our own, a path on our own. So most of the lifetimes, you will actually be living on your own, experiencing things on your own. You're not going to be living in the same lifetime with your twin, right? There are two reasons for that. Again, like I mentioned, one is that you have your own business to do, and another thing is that our connection is so powerful because this is the only object in the universe that is of the same frequency as you are. So when that frequency is materialized, it's a power that start exploding, right? You will always find each other. If you live the same lifetime on the same planet in the same time, you will always find each other. You will always find each other, right? So sometimes if you don't want that, you want to focus on something else, you will embark on that journey through different lifetimes without your divine counterpart. So I would say it's going to be about 10 to 20%, more like 10, of lifetimes that you've actually lived together. 10 or even less, Spirit is saying, thank you. 10 or even less it can be, of lifetimes that you've actually shared and you've actually lived together, right? So knowing that, you can ask yourself, well, okay, but how does it happen then? Right? How does it happen? Do we get into union? Are we together? What is going on in this lifetime? Because this connection is so powerful and is so magnetizing, that how does it look like? Do we only get into union once? Do we only achieve that once? And this is where it's very important to understand what I said before. Meeting your twin and being awakened by your twin is a completely different thing from activation to the journey, right? So when you meet your twin, when you fuse with your twin, if you know what I mean, he awakens your sacral energies touch. And through that, you're literally, again, that powerful object that is of the same frequency is literally right next to you. And especially for the feminine energy, it awakens us to the frequency of love, to the frequency of romance, the frequency of obsession. Again, it's what I always say, one of these things is not like the others. Nothing ever will be, right? So he awakens you. And the feminine, it doesn't matter when, where, how you've lived. He awakens you. So we will always, for us, it will always be the moment that will mark the before and the after of our life. Right? Very powerful moment. But the fact that he has awakened you doesn't mean that you have both been activated to the journey. We are only being activated to the journey when our soul is ready to start to walk the path towards physical union. Right? So all these lifetimes that you've lived, for the purpose of this video, we're going to agree that the time is linear, because how else would I explain this to you? But you know from what I've explained that it's just an illusion, right? But all these lifetimes that you're living with your twin, he awakens you spiritually. So he awakens things within you that you didn't know existed, the depths of emotion, of sensation, of love, of feeling, of drive. But you're not both a squirrel. That's so cute. Confirmation right on my tree. Not my tree, my neighbor's tree, but beautiful. Doesn't matter. So only when we've lived through enough experiences, enough lifetimes with our twin, enough lifetimes without our twin, we reach a moment when we're old enough soul, and I speak about this so much, that old, it's not an age, because soul are eternal, it's awareness, we're all same. But the age of a soul, as we described it on earth, links specifically to wisdom of the soul, lifetimes that we've been through, what we've learned, right? So there's a moment of readiness to connect to the lifetime that you can not only just be awakened, but to be activated. And when you're activated, you embark on a journey of twin flame, which is the journey that I've described through different perspectives in my previous episode. So I there was one that I talked about the stages of the journey. There's another when I talked about how does it happen for the feminine. I think it was the last one. And how does it happen for the masculine. So you embark on that journey, and that journey has given milestones and certain characteristics that happen for all of us. And this journey, the objective of this journey is not just to awaken you, but to activate you to the journey, to embark on a journey of deep spiritual healing and self-discovery. And the byproduct, not the objective of this journey, will be your physical union with your divine counterpart. Now, side note, once we're activated and we start this journey, does it mean that union is given and granted? No. It is the objective. It is the goal. It is our plan. But we do have free will. So we can choose to give up on this journey. And again, watch the previous episodes where I talk about this. I don't want to repeat certain things, right? But those last lifetimes, right, that we live here on earth will be those that we will be activated to the journey and given an opportunity to walk the path. She's so cute. To walk the path and to get into physical union, right? So you would ask then, okay, if we did not manage to get into union, to get activated in those previous lifetimes, the question would be, what's the purpose? And the question would be, why we didn't get there? What happens then in this lifetime? How does it look like, right? In this lifetime, is it same like this one? So it's separation, it's madness. How does it look like? So the reason we live lifetimes with our divine counterpart is sort of a dry run, okay? Test, preparation. It is impossible. This journey is so difficult for one soul of the same frequency to be split into two bodies and exist in one lifetime on the same planet. It's so powerful. No words for it, that it would be impossible to, okay, first lifetime, let's get activated to the journey and we get into union. No, you won't. Because it requires the wisdom of the soul. It requires the soul to have been through pain, suffering, challenges, everything that we go through in the physical lives to grow and to expand, right? So it's sort of a preparation. Similarly, like in life, didn't you ever have that moment when you are experiencing something beautiful, and you're thinking, you know what, if it haven't been through the past pain, I would never appreciate this, or I would never seen this thing for what it actually is, right? So we have to lay foundation. We are laying foundation. That is exactly what we're doing for the final lifetime that will be a life of service, life of deep spiritual awakening, life of healing, life of remembrance, life of true awakening, right? So now, if you think that we had so many lifetimes together, but we didn't get activated to the journey, and we didn't actually got that opportunity to get into union because we were not ready for that 3D divine union, for 3D, 5D, all dimensions, truly, when we get into union is union. We merge. When we get into union, twin flames, when we get into physical union, it's merge of two souls. We are dematerializing all the other possible lifetimes and timelines. This is it. This is our life. This is our heaven on earth. For the pain that we have went through, for our growth, and also as a service to the planet, to raise vibration of the planet, right? This is our prize. We are our prize, right? You don't have to really get into physical union, but this is our prize, that we live heaven on earth. This is heaven on earth. Living in union, inner union and external union with your divine counterpart, twin flame, is heaven on earth, right? So what actually happens in the lifetimes that we're not granted, you ain't gonna like the answer, that we're not granted the chance to walk this path and get into union because we're not ready. Simply, we're not ready, right? Well, basically what happens is pain, tragedy, death, disappointment, separation, you name it. Think about the most powerful love stories in books and in movies that end up in tragedy and that make you, I'm going to start crying because now I'm really thinking about many. And what do I always tell you guys about the movies? When a movie causes emotional reaction within you, you know that it is showing you past life trauma, or it is tapping you into the energy of your dissertation, right? Why are you here? So to me, sis always, right? Obviously, this ridiculous matrix society tells you that this is because you're naive and you're gooey, so don't believe that. But to me, one of the biggest things when I would watch movies, love movies, or read books, when they do not end up being together, I promise you, this book will be thrown through my window. I would go crazy. I would cry. I would scream. I would never want to watch this movie ever again. Why? Because it was always tapping me into my blueprint, the blueprint of my soul. We are gods and goddesses of love here. We come here to remind people of divine order, of love, a true meaning of love, right? Not just romantical love, but true meaning of love. So this is what we live through in all these lifetimes, right? So those are going to be situations where you cannot be together because one of you or both of you are married, right? And this is in times, we live in times when everything is easy, truly. In most parts of the planet, if not all parts of the planet, these days you can do whatever you want, right? Maximum, your family's not going to talk to you and your local priest is going to tell you you're going to go to hell, right? But you can do whatever you want. But in the past, on earth, it was not so easy, right? It could end up in huge disaster, in your a disaster for you, for your family. Some things were unimaginable, unthinkable, unspeakable, right? So we go through lifetimes where one of us, again, or both of us are married and we cannot be together. We go through lifetimes when there's a huge age gap and we cannot be together. We go through lifetimes where there's a huge economical or status difference, classic mesalliance, right? So it's just unspeakable. So we're going to be talking about situation when he's rich, powerful, white male, and you are his servant, right, or his slave even, right? So unspeakable. We talk about situations where perhaps time, space, war, social, economical, historical events separate you, right? Sometimes it can be, I'm thinking about my past lifetimes as well. It can be religion, right? So for whatever reason created by the matrix, because remember, we are laying foundation to reach that lifetime when we will wreck the matrix, when we will break the matrix, because this is the purpose of twin flames. This is why now there's so many of us, many, very, very few if you think about the population of the planet, but many in comparison to the past. We've lived all these lifetimes to prepare, to lay foundation for life where we're going to get into union and wreck the matrix and remind people what love is truly about. So we had to suffer that we couldn't be with someone because we were poor, because we had a different skin color, because we had different religion, because we didn't have enough money, because we already perhaps had a child, because we were married to someone else, because we were forced into marriage to someone else, right? So situations that, again, matrix created that we were meant to break. So we have to go through it all, right? So these are sort of like a one bucket of scenarios. We just were not allowed to be together, which would cause a life of suffering. Because one more thing that I need to mention before I say to you the another basket of scenarios is that, remember, it is for a reason that we now live a lifetime when we have access to information, access, like I go on sessions with my shaman who lives in the UK, right? The person who guided me on my journey was my beautiful shadow worker and a psychic and a medium as well, psychic medium as well, who lives in Australia. Right? We have access to internet, books, information, internet. We can share. Yes, it also causes a lot of devil energy and a lot of confusion, but we have access to information. We have so much more knowledge when it comes to human nature, to human psychology, to spirituality. We are so much more open to break the paradigm, to do whatever the F we want in this life, right? It is still difficult, but we can do it. So we have the resources, we have the tools to walk this path right now. But think about Middle Ages, think about ancient Egypt, think about even 200 years ago, think about Renaissance, whatever times you want to go back to that you've lived. We didn't have these resources, right? We didn't have anyone. So remember things that started happening to you as you get activated as a divine feminine. You start seeing things, you start hearing things, you start feeling things. You are completely what seems like an obsession with this person. You see them everywhere, you feel them, you smell them, you sense like they're in a room, you dream about them, you get visions about them. In the past, freaking dark ages, who would help you with this? Who would help you? No one, right? You would go completely crazy. So it is a life of suffering, because right now, when you meet your twin, it starts the life of suffering. I'm sorry to say that, but it starts a life of pain, and you do not have the resources to realize that it is actually the greatest gift that you could have ever received. Now we have the resources, so it's not just our readiness, but all of us, everything makes sense. It's a huge chain reaction. It's a chessboard, right? So everything, all the souls, even those that we do something for other souls, that are non-twin flames, they do something for us. We've all prepared the world that enabled us to live through this experience, right? And granted, this world also has a lot of gunk. That's why it's our job to cleanse it, right? And start building that new earth, that heaven on earth for everyone, right? So we go through these experiences to prepare, but we don't have the tools and the resources. So in those past lifetimes, when you live that tragic, very sad and very painful love story, you are separated. And oftentimes it's not now in this journey when you're activated, you're separated, you don't see them, which is actually easier, right? Because you're not constantly reminded of they're there, but you cannot have them. How there are some pairings that, you know, your, let's say your twin is somewhere in your vicinity, so he may live in the same neighborhood, or you can have same friends, or you can live or work in the same building. But for most pairings, when we go into separation, we're completely separated. We don't see each other, right? So the masculine, I always talk about this, they usually watch us through social media and they keep tabs on us, but we have no access. We haven't seen them, heard them, spoken to them, smelled them, touched them for sometimes years on end. So it seems like a torture, but in reality, it's easier because we forget about them. It's something that the masculine, in the second of a deviation, again, in the second level of the journey, when we are done with our deepest healing and we're already in, you know, reaching in the union, already in union, and the masculine starts his journey of healing, he starts his suffering because he's no longer in denial. So he longs for us, he misses us, and he watches us, and he's like, oh my God, you know, like she's okay, and so on and so forth. And but they look at us every day. Like I said, most of Divine Feminines, we do have some sort of a platform to talk about whatever, because this is also a way for us to carry on our mission, right? Not necessarily spiritual mission, but whatever mission you have. But we haven't seen them, haven't heard them, so we forget. We forget their face. I mean, they're always with us, but they become that higher self with us, right? We don't really remember the tone of their voice, their laughter, it's a physical thing. Their physical body is a physical thing, so we let that go, right? But in those lifetimes, you don't necessarily go into that separation. Separation is part of the journey when you're activated, right? But in those past lifetimes, you can be actually in the same, like, again, remember what I said, he can be your white master and you can be his slave. So you're going to be seeing him every day, sometimes with his wife and family, right? So it's suffering. It's pain like no other. And all the things are being activated within you as well, because you are awake. And so certain shadows, certain inner demons, right? So it's nightmare. It's hell. It's hell on earth to lay foundation for your heaven on earth one day. So that first basket is a basket of scenarios and lifetimes where we simply are not allowed to be together, to truly lay foundation for believing in love and asking ourselves all this lifetime, why I cannot be with a person I love and they love me because they previously were married to someone else, or they richer, or they from different religion or different culture, different skin color, whatever that nonsense is. Why, right? The second basket of lifetimes is simply something tragic. So one of us, unfortunately, returns to spiritual realm before the other, right? So again, it can happen in a variety of scenarios: disease, sickness, you can get killed, war, whatever. Think about all the history of mankind. Anything can happen. And oftentimes these lifetimes create a very deep trauma. And I find in my experience, but it may not be the case, right? If you have different experience, share that with me. But oftentimes, my universal truth and my experience, again, it creates a gigantic very painful trauma for the masculine, because masculines, remember, we carry the blueprint of our soul, what we're supposed to be, what we're supposed to do. So they forever want to be our protectors, right? So that masculine feels like I have failed to protect my queen. So if you are the one to leave physical realm and go back to spiritual realm, and he actually loses you, and if it's a lifetime where it happens in his presence, he actually sees that or holds you in his arms, it creates such a deep loss trauma that in that last lifetime that we go through now, right, when we're activated, it gets activated within him. And one of the reasons that he stays away is because he feels love towards you so deep, so strong, so profound, that the merely thought of losing you in this lifetime, it's nothing that he can deal with. So if you're masculine and you're watching and it's something that it resonates with you, you would feel this in your heart, this grief in your heart. Heal that. Focus on your heart space. Focus on your heart chakra. Heal your heart. You can never lose your feminine. You can lose this flesh and body. And granted, it can be very nice. But you will never lose the soul. You're one soul. You're always connected. You're forever connected, right? But again, this experience can create very strong trauma within the masculine, something that he may need to heal before he's allowed to step into physical union in that last lifetime. And that third and last basket of categories where we live lifetimes together is lifetimes where we actually are allowed to be together, right? So we actually are together. But the intensity, again, of the same frequency, the intensity of the connection, and the process of awakening that is happening within us makes it completely crazy. So we're basically stuck in that in and out phase that we go through. We never move to the phase of separation and healing. So we stay in that phase, but without healing and without realization. So those are going to be your relationship that perhaps your twin actually was your husband or was your life partner, and you've lived all that lifetime with them, but you would constantly just drive each other crazy. You would maybe even cheat on each other, leave each other, return to each other, fight with each other, toxicity, trauma again. Or those can be lifetimes that you're both married, so you're still together, but you're actually cheating on someone else because it's too difficult for you to stay away and not to be. So again, you're building karma. You're doing something that you're not supposed to be doing, right? Those are going to be lifetimes that this is going to be this person that returns to you every few years, and you have this hot romance, and then you just cannot stand each other, right? Because remember what I always say, our soul is same soul of the same frequency, right? But our soul is shielded, guarded, armored by shadows, traumas, wounding, self-limiting beliefs, fears, right? So when we are, it's this, imagine everything goes down to fear and love, right? Shadow, trauma, it's all fear, and the rest is love. So it's like this scale. We are each other's ultimate mirror, right? So if we are more guided by darkness than light, more by fear than by love, what the other person is reflecting, they're reflecting this darkness because they're your mirror. So you drive each other crazy. It's just a complete delulu, complete craziness, right? So those will be relationships that are very, very just like complete madness. Madness is the word. Complete madness. So we can have, relationship, but it's not going to be, a peaceful, loving union. Because despite the fact that we have deep love for each other, our shadows are ruling our life. Our shadows are guiding us. So we're constantly just acting from a place of fear, trauma, wounding, right? So we create toxicity between each other, and it's constant, just this fight of flames, right? But one thing that I want to mention is that your divine counterpart, we always, on some subconscious deep level, have the remembrance of the soul, right? So no matter how distorted our energy was, no matter how what experiences we had to go through and what traumas and who we were as human beings, we were always going to have certain amount of that internal block that will not allow us to hurt each other very, very, very deeply, right? So it can happen that in that, again, all those scenarios that I've mentioned, that you're gonna like call each other names, that you're gonna be fighting, that you're gonna be have very heated and passionate kind of relationships. Sometimes it can happen that you're gonna push him and let's say or like slap him or like telenovela kind of thing, right? So you can lie to each other, manipulate each other, you can deceive each other, you can create a lot of toxic energy and low vibration energy. But never, ever, ever, never, it's not going to be abusive, right? So I always say this in when I talk about, the dynamics of twin flames, and it's something that also helps a lot of people, because a lot of people are stuck thinking that this is my twin and it's actually their karmic. Like I said, they can say, oh my God, you're crazy, you're stupid, you're ridiculous, go to hell, I never want to see you again, don't call me, right? But you will never really call each other very strong names. You will never humiliate each other from a place of maliciousness, right? So yes, it can happen in those scenarios that, remember that I mentioned to you, let's say one is very rich, the other is a servant. So sometimes in denial of that connection, certain, scenarios can happen that the other person will really feel humiliated, but it's not going to be a malicious act of that other person. So there's not going to be a verbal abuse, a mental abuse, physical abuse. They're actually not going to hurt you, right? That level of really toxic narcissistic abuse, it's something that never will happen in any of the lifetimes to the twins, because we have that remembrance of the soul, right? The same blueprint that creates the lost trauma in the masculine when he loses you, it's the same one that prevents him and you from ever causing you an actual, predetermined and premeditated harm, right? Okay, so I hope this was interesting. I hope this was helpful for you. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. If you would like to connect to me, all the information and all the links are in bio. To book a session with me, it's via Instagram. If you just simply want to connect to me, I invite you to follow me on TikTok as well, because I post there daily collective readings, content, not just about twin flames, but also about spirituality, soul ties, alignment, so on and so forth. So yeah, if you have any comments, again, remember, if you are a physicist, we gotta get together. And if you just feel guided and pulled towards me, it's gotta be for a reason. Remember, golden threads. So I invite you to, to my space, whatever you feel comfortable. And yeah, I hope this was interesting and helpful. It's, as you can see, a super interesting topic to me every time. And when you already are in a place of peace, right? Tapping into past lifetimes that you've lived with your love are absolutely amazing. You look at them as a movie, they no longer cause this distress. Right now, when I watch these movies, tragic love movies, I no longer cry and I no longer throw the TV through my window. It's like, oh, love is beautiful, right? Because it's that deep understanding that comes with inner union, that nothing could ever separate us. Nothing ever, in any lifetimes, in any realms, ever, right? The moment we release and shed physical bodies, like we're sucked in back together, as one soul. So yeah, that's it. Nothing else to say, and I will see you tomorrow. If you have any topics that you would like me to discuss about the journey of twin flames, leave them in the comments.